Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Rejuvi 45. If you've checked in today and or watching our recordings and reels, you are here for one reason, and that's because you believe in modern leadership. You're a believer and believe that you can have compassionate human leadership at the same time as you can have fierce business leadership. We're so happy that you're here. My name is Regina Hepp, and today I am joined by Marie Fields. Hey, Marie, how's it going?
So good to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I don't know as the crow flies. I think I'm 500 miles or so north of you. And on Halloween, we woke up, looked outside, and it was blizzarding. Like not just a little bit of like pretty snow. It was blizzarding. Yeah. How
We
about
were lucky we didn't have the blizzard, although there were parts of the Chicagoland area that had whiteout
yeah?
conditions. So my house was spared the whiteout. It was just cold and we had very few trick-or-treaters, sadly. I have a lot of candy left over in this house.
Well, I think it warmed up throughout the day, and we did have a lot of candy, but we got through a lot of candy. So I was super happy to hear about that. Um, I have been trying to, Rejuvi has been hoping to get you on the Rejuvi 45 show for quite some time. I'm glad that it finally worked out.
Yeah, the stars aligned finally. So happy to be here.
I know. So for those of you who are new to Marie, one of the reasons why it was important to us to have her on the program and talking about modern leadership is because she has this really unique perspective. And one of those unique perspectives, I think, is just her style and her approach in general. Number two, she has a really fantastic background inside of the training and development, learning and development space. But she also understands and has a perspective of someone who has worked as the head of human resources. So it's a very unique perspective. And so I'm really excited to have you here today.
Very happy to be here. It's
Um,
been a
so
wild ride.
yeah, so Marie, I want to take people back. We're here and we're doing this show called On the Receiving End. And it's really on the receiving end. We've got this kind of, picture right here, you know, and it's a golf picture. And I think about all of the times that I've watched, golfers. And when the ball goes in the hole, there are these just gigantic, massive moments of exhilaration. And when it's close but no cigar, there is this sense of exasperation. And so when we talk about this thing called on the receiving end, and in the context of modern leadership, this is about understanding how our customers, how all the leaders might feel to things that we choose to deliver to them, right? On the receiving end, what does it feel like to be on the receiving end of leadership development past? And what does it feel like to be on the receiving end of leadership development in the future? And to kind of open up today's conversation, I want to take everybody back to the first meeting that I had with Marie. Marie was working for a large supply chain 3PL business. She was the head of learning and development. I don't know if you called it learning and development. It was called maybe talent development, maybe training development. I don't quite know, but
Learning and
that's
development, I felt fit that role quite well.
mm,
Right. It was a lot, it was
okay.
kind of all encompassing. Yeah.
Yeah. So to first talk a little bit about that, because then I'm going to tell folks how you were introduced to me. So when you say learning and development is probably the right thing, it's more all encompassing. Why do you say that?
It was so all of the new hires that came into that organization for that specific office, they all worked under me for a good month. And it was everything from systems it was heavy on the systems training. There
Yeah.
was
It's a
the
supply chain, you
culture,
better be,
right?
right?
Bring them the lingo that goes along with that, what we do as a company, the customer service element of it, in addition to these were folks that were right out of college. That was our main focus, was getting brand new grads, first job out of college. So there's a little bit of that development piece even there about, hey, this doesn't fly in the corporate environment, like kind of elevating even that element
There's
of it.
always that transition, with
Oh,
your
yes.
college grads, right? Mhm.
Yes. It's and not even taking that as, oh, we have to do this. It was, no, we're going to do this. We're going to set them up for success. Let's tell them, like, and you'd use analogies. I'd kind of give the analogy of, if you were a freshman going into the school newspaper and saying, hey, I'm going to do this, this, and this, like maybe a senior on the school newspaper would be more receptive to something like that. But a freshman, you got to kind of learn. You got like kind of go back to that freshman year mode and putting it in that sense of like, you could have great ideas. We want to hear them, but also it's how you how you approach it, right? And truly it's that professionalism piece
Mhm.
that you just have to bake that in. So that's where I mean, like, it really spanned
Mhm.
all of those different buckets,
Right.
right? It was everything.
I like your phrase a lot, kind of all encompassing. Well, I think when someone they said, "Hey, Reg, you're going to be working on this initiative, and we want to introduce you to Marie. So you're going to you're gonna head to Chicago, and this is what they said, and she really understands the business, right? And so I want to talk about that just a little bit because, you know, there's this whole thing about what's your intent versus what's your impact, right? So when I hear she really understands the business, I was like, thank God, right? Because why would you want to build or refresh, for example, an onboarding process, right? When you know that in an onboarding process, there are pieces of, just like you said, about the system, about the business, about the customers, about how you choose to service them. If you don't understand those things, how are you going to build or a refreshed onboarding process, right? So that's how it impacted me. Like, she really understands the business. But I have to tell you that I don't, it's not like I running around challenging people's intent. You always want to, always want to, I think, assume positive intent. But I got the sense that it was being said by someone who thinks of training and development or human resources as doing the people side of the business, and then there's the business, and the business does the business. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was so interesting that that's the way that they introduced you.
Well, I feel like they also, what did you tell me? They told you I was a tough cookie,
Tough cookie.
which still I'm like, I think I was and am. You need to be. You need to be. You got to stand up for what's the real impact? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What is the impact on the business? Because if you don't have all of those pieces together, what's the point then, right? You could have the most beautifully dressed up training offering to deliver to people, but if there isn't the meat behind it, right, and that intention behind it, it's not going to do anything. And so people then lose faith in what you're going to bring forward, right? And, oh, is this going to be another waste of our time? No, it's like you want that to be present always and always have that intention. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I see we've got a comment kind of coming in from someone, but I just think that to me was such an interesting moment in time because you and I have this great, we have a great relationship, right? We've become friends, we have been colleagues, we've done work together, we've supported each other through some, through both the ups and the downs. But I love this start because I am continually told, especially when you take a look at the notion of what Rejuvi means by this phrase called modern leadership. Well, it is the idea that you can do two things at one time. You can actually help a leader, right? Help the person, help the human to become a compassionate human leader, and at the same time, you can help them to be a fantastic, fierce business leader, you know? And so when you describe this concept to some people, I think it almost becomes a little scary because especially if you're talking to, I think, a more traditional human resources group or a more traditional training and development group, because they'll talk about, we do the people, they do the business, as if these things don't fit together logically, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
And they have to.
they have to. Well, it's like you said, it's the meat, right? And if the business people, if the folks that work inside of an organization are going to go to or participate in some sort of learning event, but they go there and it has not, it's a good time, like fine, but fine that fades away tomorrow. But if it really doesn't help them in their jobs, they're you just lost credibility, right?
Oh yeah,
And credibility is really hard to build back, I think.
correct, correct.
So I think that you and I have this, we've always had this cornerstone belief as we've kind of grown together over the years, that it's both the soft and the hard, right? It's both the person, and the business. So Marie, you aren't in a straight training and development role right now, but you really are heading up human resources. Just from that point of view, like, you've talked a little bit about your point of view about why it's so important to do both, on behalf of your people, human and business side, from a training perspective. But from a kind of a head of human resources perspective, why is it so important to be both soft and hard? Why is it more important now than ever to pay attention to both the human side of leadership as well as the business side of leadership?
Oh, I think especially with just the where we all are right now, economic factors in the world, all sorts of stuff is going on where right, wrong, and different, it doesn't matter. Are a lot of us are working with less, right? So number one, if you're not keeping that business mindset consistently in mind with whatever you may be doing, whatever program you're rolling out, change management, etc., you have to have that business piece front and center to know here's what we're driving towards, right? And maybe it's changed. So
Mhm.
just being in lockstep with where you are as a business is so vital these days because your people component, right? They're probably doing more with less, whether that's tools, whether that's
That's a good point.
manpower, all of that. So it goes back to that meat. You got to have that meat there, right? And you need to just be very much in tune with the business, or you're going to frustrate people, you're going to burn people out, you're going to be delivering maybe half the message. It's not going to be effective at all, right? Unless you have both sides really, so still have that human element to it. What's feasible? Let's keep them in mind always, but there has to be that emphasis on the business side, or you're just companies right now, they're struggling so much. And this could even be, some of the folks I've worked for in the past. All of us are having the same challenges right now that I feel like now it's always been important. And that, I've been a firm believer, but I feel like now even more so. Um,
That just got me to thinking about something. And I totally agree with you that it's more important now than ever. And I oftentimes use this phrase called, modern times make it hard to find your sea legs, right? Because there's just so much. And so,
all
I don't think that it's also not just combining. You have to find ways to combine human excellence with business excellence.
over.
It's not just that, but it's also in the context of human excellence. You have to kind of sequence things for people, right? Like kind of these things first, this chunk second, and this chunk third. It's not like you want to be completely prescriptive. Like that's not what we're talking about. But you want to provide some overall sense of, you know, part and piece, these parts and pieces before those parts and pieces. On both, here's the things that are going to make you fantastic as a leader, as well as here's how you can actually run your business. Or here's how you can run your department in a more of a sequential way. Do you know what I mean, Marie?
Yeah. Building
It,
blocks.
oh my gosh, building blocks. Yes, because yeah, it's not just that there's so much and you need both of these lever points, but you also need them in a sequenced way, I think, to help.
Yeah, you can't boil the ocean. It just doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Got to start small and build up.
Right. And then know a little bit how to do that. You know, can you can you think of a time, for example, when either you have, made a boo-boo, right?
It's never
You
happened. Right.
yeah, I use the word boo-boo because I think sometimes, well, I know this. I think that one of the things that we've learned about research of great leaders is that, so of course, they make mistakes, but it's how they talk about the mistakes that they made and what they've learned from it.
Mhm.
It's there's more of a focus on that. But, can you talk a little bit about, let's talk about the customer, right? So, as the global head of training and development, or learning and development, or the head of human resources, your customers, you've got a lot of customers, you've got a lot of stakeholders, but a key piece of your audience has always been leaders,
Mhm.
right? They are your customers. And look at you. You have always been fiercely protective of that audience because you know how fundamentally important that those groups are to the organizations that you have been working in. But can you talk about a time when, either something that you did or maybe a vendor that you brought in, didn't take this approach where it's human strength and business strength all wrapped up together, and what
Yep.
the impact was on your customers?
I actually inherited a problem that I'm still kind of reworking. There was a tool that one leader in the company had used in their past, felt very strongly about. Let's do this, kind of out of the purview of human resources, unfortunately. So contract signed, sealed, delivered, kind of a thing. And hey, we're going to roll out this tool, and I'm going, whoa, 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 wait a minute. This is a tool that can be used well. It needs a lot of, it goes back to that building block approach where there was no thought about how do we develop this? How do we implement this in a really robust way, in a methodical way, so that your leadership team knows the proper use for it, your end users, the employees, are being given the proper messaging. There's all these things where I was like, if I had been brought in early on, this rollout would have been very, very different. And it did. It was rolled out in a way that I'm still fixing some things. So a big
Mhm.
mistake to not have been brought in early on
Mhm.
so that I could have been more protective of my leadership. And I was bristling just even thinking of as you were asking this question, because it does. That's not how I operate. right? And that's not the way I do things. And unfortunately, it did lead to some situations where we had to course correct. And I'm almost re configuring the messaging. And actually, it came to a point where it was like, we need to pause entirely on this tool. I know a lot of you really want to use it. We need to stop and we need to recalibrate. We need to get this leadership team, um, we need them to be aligned with how we want to use it, be very intentional with how we're using it, and then also how we're communicating that back to employees and even in conversations with the employees. So yeah, it has definitely happened, and it's not pretty. Uh,
Mhm.
just a little bit of that
What about the,
early
yeah,
planning could have prevented all of that.
think about, kind of stepping stones. So it's like now there's confusion within the leadership audience. What about their teams,
Oh
right?
yeah.
What about the employees, the groups? Like what kind of impact do you see this kind of separated stuff impacting those stakeholders?
I saw it in exit interviews, to be honest, in a few cases. Thankfully, not that many, but definitely in
Yeah.
exit interviews, employee engagement surveys, where it just didn't, it wasn't teed up properly, and it led to mixed messaging, truly mixed messaging all around in some cases, and in other cases, just not being utilized in the way it was intended. So then you have employees who are now not engaged, or well, now I feel like I'm being pigeonholed here or there, whatever. So it absolutely had an impact on
Yeah.
the employees in
Mhm.
some case. And now in some cases we did have some success. I'm happy to say, but unfortunately, just not. It was not across the board,
It was
and
not, it wasn't across what it wasn't across the board.
right.
I remember, a couple of years ago, I was working with an organization and their chief marketing officer I was spending some time with her and she had just finished she had just gotten some leadership assessment feedback. And I think I know she had some coaching kind of working through the feedback on the tool. But part of the feedback that she got, I don't remember all of all of the language, but she got some feedback on kind of an area about her it was kind of going into her EQ capability. And I think the factor that they were looking for was woo, whether or not, it was kind of this nice relationship, kind of high woo kind of factor. And so she was kind of showing me her piece and she said, what do you think this means? And, I was trying to get some information about, well, have you talked to your coach? How was this set up? And she said, no, that's not what I mean. She said, I have all that. They described what this high woo actually means. But what I want to know is, what does it mean in terms of how I run my business? What does this mean in terms of how I might do things differently, as someone who cares deeply about the organization and who is leading marketing for this piece? She's like, I don't get it. And so I think, as being on the receiving end, so much of what the leadership development community has to start thinking about is, what does it feel like to be our customers, when their jobs have gotten increasingly complex over time, and we continue to deliver tools that are so focused on a slice of what makes a leader fantastic in their role. I mean, what does it feel like? It's not good, because
No.
ultimately my time with her ended up with her just kind of taking this piece and just like literally tossing it inside of the garbage, right? And then we moved on with what she felt was like a more meaningful way for her to grow as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and that, just even hearing that, I'm like, the waste of time, the waste of potentially money, all of that.
Waste of mind share, waste of money,
Yes.
it wastes everything. It wastes time, it wastes money, it wastes mind share, it wastes a lot of things. But that's not always the, there are better ways, right?
Mhm.
And so since inception have, since the start of your career have always been someone who understands the business. And so solutions that you're bringing in have to help the people in the context of the actual business. And so when we start to think about that, and even modern leadership, that's what modern leadership espouses. You can make the people better and the business better at the same time. But can you think of a time when, where you have seen success, where it hasn't been a waste of time, it hasn't been a waste of money, and it hasn't been a waste of mind share? All those things were impacted positively because you brought both pieces together for your customers.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've absolutely seen that. And, again, it goes into being very intentional with what are we trying to accomplish here? What is
Mhm.
the end result? What's the desired end result? What's the impact on the business? All of that, because then you're drawing that into that program, whatever that program can be. And I definitely have seen that in my past where we were very transparent. I was very transparent about this is why we're here. And this is how we move the needle, right? And so this is why we're going to be focusing this time talking through this and what we're going to have education around kind of the backstory, the background of it. Let's do some skills development. But really it was always about this is how it's going to improve. It's going to improve in these scores and this revenue generation, whatever. I just sometimes it was all of the above, right?
As it should
And
be, right? As it should be.
exactly.
If those are, if
And
those are, if those are, if those are outcomes that are important to your organization, then the solutions that you bring in should impact the outcomes that are important to your organization. It's not rocket
yeah.
science.
And as a leadership team, we were very intentional with practicing what we preached too, right? And making sure we drew upon those principles, even if it was a meeting, right, or a town hall, whatever the case may be. We really just we it was so ingrained in the culture then, right? Um, and being very transparent about it and reminding people like this is why we're doing this. And truly the success from that has continued on for years. It started with that implementation and being so intentional with how we were doing things and
Mhm.
having what do we want those results to be and how do we develop our people so
Mhm.
that they're now armed with to be successful and we're
Mhm.
getting those outcomes and it's just a win-win all around. I mean, I've seen some tremendous success there. Like I said, it's still going on to this day.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
and that and it really was that mindset all around just fostering it
Mhm.
across the board.
Yeah, I have a really, just like I have this story, when I start thinking about examples, so many times I start thinking about like certain people and their reaction, like Sarah, who was like, what does this, she's the chief marketing officer and she's going, what does this mean, and completely separated human development from business development. But I've had positive scenarios too. And the positive scenarios come when you're starting to use modern tools. And I remember he was the he was the director of operations in a financial services organization. And he had received his first modern leadership output report. And you know that when you go into a modern leadership output report, you can go to chapter 1 or you can go to chapter 2. It doesn't matter where you start. You can go to chapter 1 and you can take a look at what are all the things about you that would describe your current capability as a compassionate human leader. You can go to chapter 2 and you can get information about how others are taking in your strong, fierce business leadership. It's both. And I remember his name was John, and he'd been with the organization um, for a long time, like long time, like I want to say 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we're not, yeah, we're not talking, new. And this will surprise you when I tell you what he said. So, where we're working through the concepts of modern leadership with him, and all of his peers, and he got his modern leadership, his Rejuvi, report, and he's got these 2 chapters in it, and it was fantastic. And the event wrapped up, and at the very end, he came and he shook my hand. And when someone shakes your hand and they shake your hand with 2 hands?
Oh, the hand, yep.
I love that. I love it when that happens, because I just think it's kind of,
It's
they,
very warm. It's very, it's like they're holding with both hands. That's so,
yeah, it's kind of like, for me, and I know you've had those moments too, and especially, we both are in the development space, and so you're working and trying to help people a lot. And so I love it when they do that, because I feel like at the end of the day was that whatever happened was they let you in,
oh yeah.
and
There was a connection.
there was a connection. They let you in, and when you got there, it really made sense to him. But I still remember he shook my hand with my one hand with both of his hands, and he said, he thanked me for the approach, about helping him to understand the difference between his compassionate human leadership separated from his fierce business leadership, and helping him to understand how these sequences of things came together. And he said, for the first time in this organization, I feel like I belong.
Wow. 17 years in.
Yeah, so talk about on the receiving end. Like, I think that for 17 years, for whatever reason, no one had connected with John. And he himself is a leader. So there's the ripple effect of him leading people, him leading teams. And if he himself doesn't even feel like he belongs or understands the sequence of things that help him to be fantastic, and the sequence of things that he has to do
Mhm.
to run a really fantastic operations unit with his people and teams,
Yep.
like that's just a ripple effect. And so I just think about some of these poignant moments that I've had, where you go even to the most experienced leaders, right? And when you can start to show them that you are helping them with the complexities of their jobs, in addition to helping them find their sea legs in the context of that
Mhm.
really, really tough job, they're going to let you in, right? They are going to just grab your hand with both of their hands, and they're going to say thank you. I still remember that.
Yeah.
17 years, and he finally felt like he
Yeah.
belonged.
Well, sometimes I think, and I've worked actually, it's so funny just even hearing that and thinking about some of my experiences. I remember vividly one organization where when I first joined, things were very siloed. And there were reasons for that. It was nothing against the organization at all. You bring folks in through acquisition, it happens, right? It happens,
It
and it
happens a
takes a
lot in
little bit to
acquisitions. Yeah.
integrate. And it was, in some cases, almost that person was protective of this is what I do, and exactly to your point, when they realized, oh wait, you're here to help. You're not
Mhm.
here to take it over. You're here to help. And you're here to help me, not just me, but also engage other folks where it's like, hey, have you talked? Let's bring in these other folks as well. And let's talk through this process.
Mhm.
And let's look at the larger scope of the business and how what you're doing is great. Let's elevate it.
Mhm.
And here's how we can do that. And you're bringing in additional resources. So now it's integrating. It's also you're making their lives easier
Mhm.
with technology. Sometimes it's like, we have this system here. This is, by the way, let's bring this person in. They can explain to you how that will make your day to day a whole lot easier,
Mhm.
right? Um, I saw so much success there when it was just integrating these folks, and being transparent,
Mhm.
right? And I'm such a transparency person. I used that comment actually in an email right before I joined all of you, where I was like, just for transparency, this is why I'm asking for this, right? Because all people want to know is why. And then it's like, no, no, we're here to make things better. And I want to make sure that you are aware of this or that, and then seeing also how they fit in with the organization. Sometimes just even lifting the veil from a corporate perspective, right? On your leadership team. Here's why we're doing things, or hey, this is how we prep for, I mean, my goodness, earnings calls. And this
Mhm.
is why sometimes there's a fire drill prior to an earnings call because we need information, right? Um, so also you just it's all about transparency. How does it affect the business? Where do you fit in? And how can we also work together to make everything better?
Well,
Um,
I love your word about transparency, and it will transition us into a tool here in just a moment. But you're right, Marie. It's if you think about who our customers are inside of the development space, if if you do the work of modern leadership, your customers are modern leaders. And so yes, you have to go to them with new models that are just like you said, they're about the people and the business. And number three, you have to be transparent with them, about how they're doing in both of those pieces.
yep.
It's absolutely critical. And what I want to show you, so of all our in all of our Rejuvi 45 sessions, we want to let people know that there are ways to make all of this real, right? Rejuvi is a platform that can help you to grow your modern leadership capability, and there are processes and tools and resources to kind of help you do it. We just try to pick the one that is most related to what we're talking about. And so I'm going to share my screen here for just a moment, and going to, okay, you see it?
It is thinking. It's still there. We are.
Okay, we got it. Okay,
Yes.
so I have gone to rejuviventure.com. I'm going to look to the top right. I'm going to log in and move my Zoom bar for just a second. Um, what would we do without password services,
My goodness. Oh my goodness.
right? Okay, so I'm logged in, and for those of you logging into a modern leadership platform for the first time, know that when you get out here, there are going to be all different worlds for all different kinds of leaders: butterscotch for senior leaders, red for sales leaders, purple for service leaders, blue for team leaders, and coming soon, green for expert leaders, like those who are leading efforts inside of data and analytics or inside of the IT department or even the finance group. And when you log in, you're going to see four broad areas of functionality, things about your entire leadership bench, about your leadership population, or ways to collect data on behalf of that leader population, and ways to do reporting and understand what the data actually tells you. So your analytics. Then there's a section called resources to go, and that's where I'm going to go. I'm landing in the team world, and I'll stay there. And I'm going to go into this folder called card deck. This is resources to go. These are places you'd go to get tools and things to have to help people one-on-one, or maybe you're taking it into a classroom. But there's something called the card deck. And we've got lots of different card decks, but the one that I want to open up is something called the Construct Card Deck. And this is the tool that I want to showcase, because when we talk about modern leadership, let me maybe minimize it just a little bit. So you can see that there are 10 cards here. But let's just say for, when we say modern leadership, we're talking about a new framework for how you grow leadership capability inside your organization. And this new framework is about the things that are going to make the individual really fantastic in their role. And so it starts with, a building block around what we might call their IQ or their ideation quotient. It would move to a building block here in the middle, which is about their EQ or their environment quotient, all of their macro people skills and their micro people skills. And then it finishes off with a piece around their AQ, their agility quotient, their ability to do and to make sure that they're giving direction to other people. So that's the basic building blocks of what makes a leader strong. The thing is that you have to have the building blocks. Now we're going to move to these four that make a leader strong. So it's the big picture, what we call strategic intent. Where are you headed? And why are you going there? And what does success look like, right? Down to this piece right here, which is about what is the role of this particular unit inside of the business, and what do they actually see happening, on the street, in the market, and how do they start to take that in to structure what they believe is the most important right work. And they're going to take that most important right work and they're going to move it to this chunk right here, which is how do we start to define new ways of making that right work come alive? And then it finishes with this piece right here, which is implement. And it's these teams coming together to decide how far and fast do they go, and making sure everybody can bring their best, right, in the context of that. So when we talk about modern leadership, you put it together in this little picture right here, right, which is these three building blocks for leader strength, as well as these four building blocks for business strength. These things are highly related, they're highly correlated, and what you can do through your analytics is start to understand if you see growth in one, changes in one, you can start to correlate it and causate it to changes in the other. That's the one tool that we wanted to showcase today in this thing called On the Receiving End. Because Marie, when you start to describe that as the model for helping leaders in this really challenging time where roles continue to get more and more complex and there's so much going on around us. I've literally been in a bar. I kid you not. I've been at restaurants, right, in a booth, and I've taken a piece of paper and I've torn it into, 7 pieces of paper. Or I've been in a bar and I've gotten out 7 cocktail napkins and I've started to describe these are the 3 things that make you fantastic. And these are the 4 things that make your business fantastic. And here's how they're related. I'll tell you what, I have yet to find a business person and at any level inside an organization who doesn't look at me and go, well, why don't we teach that then?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just these competencies that make you strong. It's not just you becoming an authentic leader, nor is it just the strategic planning of the business, right? These are both of the things. And there is a easy building block, sequential way that you can build this capability inside your organization.
Yeah.
Simple card deck.
Well, and it's funny you using that example of cocktail napkins because I vividly remember very early on in our relationship a few napkins. We were all out together.
We
Do you
were
remember
we were
that?
all out together, and you pencil things out, you napkin estimate things. In fact, I think that was a phrase that we used a
Napkin
lot
estimate. That's
to,
what it
remember that?
was. And so you've been doing this for years.
Mhm.
And it's effective because there we were all together, like, that's how that all correlates. And oh, this goes together like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that visual. You need
You,
that, you need the card deck, you need the tool in that visual way where this is how it all correlates, right? Exactly to your point. Yeah, you've been doing that for years.
well, while I think we've been doing it for years, I don't think that the modeling and the capability has caught up. Now it has caught up, and we can actually now start to scale these concepts called modern leadership in many organizations, hundreds, thousands of organizations, and that's what's actually starting to happen, right? Which is fantastic because I want to bring it to something that you opened up with, and that was there couldn't be a better time for the idea of bringing together human excellence and business excellence, given all that that's demanded of us today.
Yeah. We need it. We need it.
Yep,
Technology changes. We haven't even talked about AI, you know, and that's a hot topic with everyone. Just how does everything fit together, right? And how do we make the sense of it and have and the business element all together?
that's right. Marie, I'm so glad that I hung in there and found a time that was available on your calendar to have you come and speak with us. Thank you so much, and thank you for being such a modern leader yourself, and always being the kind of person that really understands the business, because the people in the business are our customers. And if we can't go to them with these models that bring together leader excellence and business excellence, then what are we doing? And you've been a fantastic role model for that, literally for decades.
Appreciate it, but lot of thanks to you and your great influence too.
Yeah, yeah, a little mutual fan club stuff going on here. Everyone, thank you for joining us today in on the receiving end. We don't get to talk about leaders as customers very much, and it's just a really, really important concept to be thinking about. And so thank you on the receiving end. We'll be back next week, Thursday, November 9th, and the title of our session will be Backbone. And what's really fascinating with the topic next week is that we're going to be talking about backbone, not only in terms of backbone leaders inside of our organization, team leaders, service leaders, sales leaders who are vastly underlooked in the leadership development space, but we're going to also be talking about some of the backbone modern leadership processes that they actually need to have. So we'll see you then. Again, thank you, Marie, and everyone watching our recordings and watching our reels. We appreciate it. Spread the modern leadership world. We'll see you next time.